everyone, I'm here today with Roger Hooker, who's kindly agreed to play 20 questions. How are you today, Roger?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Okay, I'm going to launch straight into it with the first question, which is, where are you in the world and why?
Okay, right, cool. Well, I'm in London, northwest London, in my house, and I'm here like everybody else because I'm locked down. But maybe I should have been in Saudi Arabia for a few days earlier for our first couple of races for the season for Formula E. Hopefully, we get there next week. But that's why I'm in London. Yeah, cool.
Question number 2. What is it you love about the sports and major event industry? And what was your first role in that world?
Well, I think really it's the fact that you're contributing towards hopefully what will be a positive life experience, either for the participants in what they're doing, be that, sport or indeed, when I've been in music venues before, or indeed, of course, those people that are coming along, watching, taking part. The fact that hopefully people leave and you've done something worthwhile. It was something that they wanted to do. And I think as well the fact that it's part of collaboration, right? You can't put on an event on your own. You're very reliant on a number of different skill sets, different people, in order to be able to stage these very large events. So that feeling that you're all in this together, you're working towards an absolute deadline, and you will get to the point where you say, right, that was done, and how did we do? And hopefully you're celebrating success. And in terms of sort of my first role, I think really outside of work experience, when I was a young boy still at school, trying to find out, how does this industry, does it work? It was really when I went to what was Wembley Stadium Limited then, when there was the old stadium, conference and exhibition centre, and the arena. They're all part of the same group, the same business. And I started there as an assistant event manager back in 1997. And so I'm beginning to age myself by giving out numbers like that. And literally I joined at the sort of the very start through a great training program that took us through how to be duty manager of a reasonable venue, the conference centre, with its sort of main grand hall facilities, about 2,500 capacity, and then slowly working through the different venues there, which was absolutely great. So that was a really, really good, positive start.
You have a degree in business management. What was the most important thing that you learned on that program?
Well, interesting, really, because sometimes I do think, do I use it? Have I ever used it? And I guess I did, really. I certainly know that in my final year, we had the opportunity to look at other faculties and see whether we wanted to try and mash into our degree, maybe a different aspect. And I did a little bit of psychology for a while. And I have to say that really that alongside, what was very pure human resource management, theoretical stuff, actually just stopping to think about, people, what makes them tick. And whilst that was only a small part of my, overall degree, because it was international business management, it took me away to an international business school in Marseille for a year, which was great. And again, that theme has probably carried on with working with people from all over the world, in workforces delivering very large events. But the psychology aspect, I think, was really, really interesting. And whilst, hey, quantitative maths and economics and some of that very dry stuff, I absolutely hated, never thought would be relevant. I've never used, is it cos, tan, and sim, whatever it is on a calculator. I'm not sure that those three terms are even right, or whether it still exists. No idea. But that wasn't for me. But the human aspect of how do you go about building a team, some of the studies around sort of leadership in particular, I found really interesting right at the very start there. So I remember looking at degrees, and my father said to me, well, if you've not got anything which is a absolute kind of very pure, if you want to be a vet, you go to vet school, right? Or if you want to be a medic, you go and do all the sciences. Then do something very general. And to be fair, that probably was the right move.
You then worked in a variety of roles, from conference and exhibition centres, racecourses, the Olympics. Excluding your current role with Formula E, which role have you enjoyed the most and why?
For me, I think highlight, and therefore, yes, enjoyed and found very rewarding, it's got to be the London Olympics, really. And maybe you're not too surprised that I would say that. I had the opportunity of working on a major project to actually showcase, obviously the UK and London, But the fact that it was so complicated, there was a huge amount of risk in there. The whole of the country was very focused on, we need to deliver this well, and it was really great to be able to sort of play a reasonable part. I was venue cluster manager, as they call it, for a number of venues, about 11 venues, those outside of London, which included all the football stadia around the UK. And in particular at games time, I looked after Wembley Stadium, which was great because that's where the career started. And Wembley Arena as well was just next door, and the Wembley precinct area outside. And look, I live in London. My career started in Wembley. I was able to go back and lead an event, the biggest event really, back on in my own postcode, really, in HA9. So for me, that's very, very special indeed to have that on your doorstep. And it was fun. Yeah, it was hard work, really, really, obviously hard work, and not without some quite fraught moments, really. But a great team, an international team up there. And yes, we worked hard and played hard, and we really enjoyed the hospitality around the Wembley location, and we became regulars in some locations as well. But the team worked hard and played hard together. It was great.
Excellent. So looking at your current role with Formula E, what 5 words would you use to describe your experience of working there?
I think I'd probably first of all say fast, right? Mm-hmm. It started as an idea on the back of a napkin in a restaurant in Paris. And, now we have a worldwide global event. It's a world championship this season as well, which is absolutely, amazing under the FIA criteria. So it's been a very fast growth project. So my first word would be fast in every aspect, right? Fast learning, what we do, things happen at speed and change at speed as well, particularly obviously right now with all the challenges everybody is dealing with. I think the second one, which I use to describe the organization in interviews when I'm talking to people who are potentially coming to look at employment opportunities in Formula E, is that it's fearless, it's bold, it's brave. If we've got an idea, we want to get to the end result of making that idea happen. We want to execute it. And we don't take no as an answer very, very easily at all. And by being so fearless and bold and ambitious, it's why the championship has got to where it is in a relatively short space of time. Fearless. I think my third one would be agile. They kind of go a little bit with the previous two, but you have to flex a little bit. You have to roll with the punches. Have to roll a little bit with the difficulties of going into city centre locations, Paris, Rome, and others as well. When we're trying to shut down a location, build a racetrack, and get this event, through as quickly, safely, and as best as we possibly can, get it broadcast around the world, but return those streets very quickly back to that city to continue to be a location for business and residents and all that good stuff. So. You've got to think on your feet a little bit, and you've got to be pretty agile. And I think my fourth term would be risk. Probably now in my role, it's a lot about sniffing out the risk and then mitigating that risk. And are we comfortable with what we're trying to do? Flying this circus around the world and putting it into locations for a short period of time where we've only got a very short build program, perhaps maybe overnight. That's difficult, but ultimately we need to be at 4 normally on a race day, and we're going live to the world, and those lights will go green. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and sometimes it is hold on a little bit tight, and you get a little bit delirious along the way. But the fact that it is global, so we've taken this idea, we keep on punching out to all sorts of different interesting locations. We'll be in Saudi Arabia again in just a few weeks' time. And that's not an easy location, an easy part of the world to necessarily operate within. But the Vision 2030 that's happening there in the KSA, state is amazing. And look, it's difficult, and people trade differently. How people interact with each other, how they do business is different. So that's sort of an example of where it is difficult. But I love the fact that we are, taking this thing around the world, come what may.
Roger, you've had a really successful career in the event industry already. How do you now give back?
I think, opportunities like this to talk to people that are in the industry is, a great thing to do. And, I've tried to do a little bit of that as time has allowed. over the past year with, working from home and having a little bit more spare time to do that. So, the opportunity to kind of do stuff within the industry and, hey, it's great for sharing ideas, but I think particularly for people starting out on their career, if you can just give them a sense of how it happened for you, what you've been doing, any advice that you would give. I think within the organization, I do try and concentrate on our younger, more junior level team. And hey, I may not be their line manager at that level necessarily, but how can I help them out with chats, catch ups, how they're doing, interest in what they're up to and whether they're enjoying it, and where they might see areas where they want to develop and that type of thing, really. So yeah, it's important. It was important to me when I started in my career, and any opportunity to share sort of experience, but also share interest in what they're doing, I think is really, really important. I try and do that as much as time allows, and if someone gets in touch, then I answer them, and I think that's really important.
What advice would you give to someone who wanted to start a career or progress their career this year in 2021 in this current environment?
Yeah, difficult, and a few people have asked me that. And again, I'll probably go back to the word agile, really, in that, look, this is not ideal. It's really hard to now find those opportunities. Normally, I'd be saying, go and find some, frontline work, be that with, stewarding, security companies, any sort of staffing agency, hospitality, that side. That just simply isn't available. But where I've been really impressed is when I've talked to people that have said, look, I've looked for where I can potentially build some skills that later will transfer back into the event industry, or people that have been in the event industry who are now out there on the front line doing stuff, might even be volunteering, not being paid, to help, for example, with vaccination centres or testing locations. And really, that's what I'd say is actually there's probably now an opportunity to go and do some stuff where you will come back with a life story that if I was having this discussion in an employment interview, I'd be really impressed by someone who said, look, I went out and did this. Hey, it's a great thing to be doing right now anyway, and that, our country, our society needs it. But also they're testing their skills live in a quite difficult environment. And I interviewed some people only the other week, and they told me that's what they were doing, and they were event specialists, and they were at the top of my list of people that I want to talk to about other opportunities, because I really like that attitude. So that's what I'd say right now is go out there, go do something, go seize it.
It's been a tough past year for many people, personally and professionally. Who in your life has been your rock or your support group, the people who keep you going?
I think probably it has been my colleagues. Obviously we've been remote from each other, so the world's been on video, but I've probably spent more time actually picking up the phone and just chatting, not necessarily about work, and that's been very beneficial. With what I do, we move around the world, and we stay in hotels, and we spend a lot of time socially with each other, and that's not been there, and that really helps to balance out some of the difficulties of what we're trying to do. So actually, probably my own immediate network within my own job has been great, and obviously, personally, at home, you end up sort of working with your partner in the same space. So I think people have either got rules where they don't talk about their work, or you end up feeling like you work for the same company, and certainly that's how it's been for me. But yeah, I suppose just any opportunity to kind of talk, but talk differently. So not so much about the actual doing, but more about actually genuinely, are you okay? How are you getting on? And I think a little network of work buddies and mates that have done that, and that's been really, really helpful.
We're all obsessed at the moment with working from home. Are you in a shed? People have made little offices in the corner of their kitchens, their gardens. So tell us about your current work from home scenario. What does that look like?
Well, it's kind of changed a little bit in that when we first had the work from home, it was in a single spare bedroom that sort of converted up with a desk in there, and that's where I was. And then over time, I've kind of, as you see, right, kind of spread out. Unfortunately, been able to. And during the summer, it was outside a little bit because the weather was great. It's not now, but more recently, in this sort of January time, I've been kind of moving around the house a little bit just to kind of make it a bit easier in terms of where you are, and you're not looking at the same four walls all the time. So yeah, I've not really had much of a routine. I've done some stuff where I've been in the kitchen, and people say, what are you doing? I've done some meetings where I've just been standing up, and not sitting down looking at a screen. So I kind of mixed it up a little bit depending on how I feel, and I'm glad that I've done that. But the thought of going back into an office to a desk location will seem very odd. I know it will for a lot of people. And hey, we may not be even back to that maybe.
So Roger, tell me who's been a valuable role model in your life?
Say that, really where it all started with my father. He was production manager at the NEC in Birmingham. And there, actually, when it opened, he was part of the team that, they struck the ground and started to build. And he was there from the start. And he was in the engineering team. And he was an electrician by trade. And, he was there from the start as they took on massive new international exhibitions. And then as they then diversified and went into music and went into entertainment. So, as a young kid, I actually, can you imagine doing this now? You would never be able to do it, but went to work with him at the weekends and, were kind of yapping at his ankles, really. And, I was probably 8, 9, 10, maybe, and you'd never be able to do that now during an exhibition build or breakdown at the weekend and, having some youngster in there. But anyway, it was different then. So I think, that's probably the starting point. And then I started to meet people and, there were other people I met later on, maybe in my late teens when I was in sixth form and I was working on events. And there was a few then where I actually then went, that guy over there is the man. He'd walk in and he'd be the fellow that everyone would go, right, that's the governor, that's the boss. And, it was about their leadership and their style and the way they engaged with everybody, including me. And it taught me a little bit at a very young, impressionable age, probably, about how you make time for people that are working on your event. And they're absolutely vital. So you may be privileged enough to be the person leading it. But, the real thing that I learned actually was you take time for everybody that's part of the complete setup in order to make it happen. So, Dad first and then others in his world later that helped me get started.
What's the favourite part of your day?
Well, I'll be honest, from about November, we've had a little puppy here, which has been a new addition into the house. And therefore, first thing in the morning, to be honest, it's actually about getting up and checking that young fella's okay, and then getting him out and then taking him for a walk. So actually, that's become my most favourite part of the day because he's really cute in the morning and glad to see you.
Tell me what's the most important lesson that life has taught you?
I think really, most recently as well, it's day by day. I think you can look too far forward and there's an awful lot of triggers that probably can cause a lot of anxiety in our lives as well, and particularly at the moment. It's a phrase that I end up using a lot with my team in that, let's take this step at a time, day by day. Let's not worry too much too far ahead because there's so much which could potentially change. For me, really, if there was something that, I'd now say that kind of I try to live by, it would be that. And also not to over worry, but, we're in a very risky, worry orientated, potentially business. You can say if you worry too much, you maybe shouldn't be doing anything in events because it's full of it. But in the end, right, this isn't brain surgery. Hopefully, if you do it safely, no one's going to die, right? You're not a surgeon on an operating table. So just have a bit of perspective. And I think probably that would be the second word that I would use. And over the summer, I read a book that said sort of, don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all the small stuff. And I featured that on LinkedIn. And it was really, really powerful. And I kind of thought, that's a lesson cemented, a life lesson, if you like. And that is what I try and hold, true with what I'm doing, if I can, right?
Have you had a guilty pleasure during lockdown?
Yeah, Amazon.
Oh.
Right? Who hasn't? So I sometimes think that the footpath up and down from the pavement to the front door has been trodden more in lockdown when it shouldn't have been, courtesy of Amazon. I suppose that's it really. We're all it's a bit too easy, isn't it, to get on your phone and go, I want that, and you don't need it at all, and you do. And I've been really impressed how. Amazon have had an amazing lockdown.
What makes you laugh, Roger?
I'm reasonably childish with humour, to be honest. But I think if we take a work environment, normally it's at the end where it might have been a little bit of a struggle, or there might have been some quite farcical moments. And I do think you need a bit of humour in this business as well. And I know the guys that I work with right now, and it's always been the case a little bit, that the ability to laugh at what happened, sometimes the ridiculous. And, the phrase, you couldn't write it. And that does happen. And those types of incidents do make me chuckle. Maybe not immediately at the time. Hopefully not, because sometimes they're a little bit serious. I think there is a need to have an ability to, a bit of sort of self-deprecation as well. And yeah, I think the teams that I've worked with, particularly at the moment, we do have an ability to look back and go, that was just ridiculous. How could that have happened?
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Look, over the years, there's been a sort of, go-to place with in Greece that has been really, really enjoyable. And I suppose if I think why, it's because the pace of life is slower. Gorgeous water, and really great place to go and eat and chill out, and it's a fun place as well. So, see, I'm not naming it because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want everyone going. You see, that's why I'm not saying where it is. But yeah, that I've often thought maybe that's the place. One day in the future, subject to whatever happens now post Brexit, with people being able to move around and stuff. But yeah, a bit of sunshine, a slower pace of life, a bit of water. I've always thought that living by water would be pretty fantastic.
So Roger, we're now up to the last 5 questions where I haven't given you any hints or tips as to what they might be. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go for it. Let's see how I do.
Let's see how you do. All right. So tell me about something that you struggled with early in your career or life and how you overcame it.
Maybe I think if thinking back on it, it was initially kind of thinking that I needed to be involved or have maybe a good technical level of understanding of various different areas of staging events. And as time went on, I suppose I really realized that there's people there to do that. That's why they are there, and that you need to trust them. You need to be able to communicate with them. You need to be able to make sure you engage and you understand the risks and what they're working through. But you aren't the electrical engineer. You aren't the sporting director. You're not the lighting technician, you're not the audio guy, and you don't need to be. So it's how to make sure that you are actually in the middle as a ringmaster, if you like, working with all these, guys that have really got their knowledge and they know what they're doing, and also just making sure you allow them to go and get on with what they're doing. And I suppose, yeah, that would be something I think at the start of everyone's career, you kind of feel that you need to know all the specialisms, and actually you then realize that actually what you're doing in the middle as an event manager often is a specialism in itself. Not everyone can do this, where you've got to be running that team around you on top of what's going on top of the risk, and working towards the deadlines with everyone of delivering, that event. And that in itself is a specialism. And they're doing what they're doing because you can't do it, and you're doing what you're doing because they can't either. So, yeah, I'd probably say that it took a little while to, suss that out.
On a lighter note, what words or phrases do you most commonly overuse?
I'm very guilty of saying, look, it is what it is, right? Which is, I know, a modern day one where you kind of go to, but again, it's around sweating the right stuff. And there's some stuff that's just out of your control. Get on with it, move on. We've reached where we are. And I think that's quite important when you're there with teams up against it in quite high pressured environments. Don't be focusing on the, how do we get to where we are and who's to blame and all that stuff. It's now about how do we get over the line. So a lovely little phrase always is that it is what it is. A second, I think the other one is, and I use it a lot in meetings when I'm beginning to get slightly bored, is I say, well, conscious of time, which is my way of wrapping up whatever's being said and trying to move us on, really. And I'm particularly bad mid-afternoon if it's a very large meeting. Often when we have our, sort of operations or production meetings, where it catches me right at the wrong moment. So, I slide into a little bit more sarcastic as well. But yeah, conscious of time is one that I get quoted back because the team then know I'm done and let's move on. Let's wrap up and get out.
Here we go. It's a very serious question, this one. Who would play you in a movie of your life?
Really? Wow. I mean, that is really hard, right? I genuinely don't know who I could. Well, I suppose I'm not allowed to ask you the question. Who would you put up for the role?
So yeah. It's quite hard if you try and think about who looks like you, as opposed to who would just play your characteristics.
Yeah. No, that's really difficult. And even with playing for time there for about, 3/4 of a minute, I can't answer the question. Do you know what we should do? We should put this out to whoever tunes in.
Yep.
They can answer.
Okay.
And I won't be offended,
So
hopefully.
in the comments, please put who you think would play Roger in the movie of his life. We can't wait. Can't wait to see that. Okay, let's see how you do with this one then. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think being able to move around in time would be pretty cool if that's a superpower. And look, you shouldn't wish your life away and sort of be jumping ahead. But sometimes that is probably very useful to get you out of tricky situations. I think being able to go back in time is probably quite cool. So that would be, kind of almost like Doctor Who, but without the Daleks and all that other stuff that used to exist. But moving, so being a Time Lord, I suppose is what it's called, right? That would be quite good fun. And look, wouldn't it be great to be back in the 1920s in London?
Oh.
I think that would be cool.
Fabulous.
So a Time Lord maybe.
Roger Hooker, Time Lord. Fantastic. Okay, we're up to the last question.
Okay.
This should be an easy one. What are you most looking forward to once life returns to normal or as close to normal as possible after COVID?
Already, and meeting people, being able to sort of socialize easily, not be restricted. I think that's really actually probably the point I'd make. Look, all we've been asked to do in lockdown is stay in and keep safe and look after other people. And there's other people, stepping out into danger daily for very long days and seeing some horrendous things. So I try and be a little bit philosophical about it, even though I know all of us have struggled through lockdown at different times and it hits you on different days. But in the end, right, we're just being asked to stay away and keep out of harm's way. And it will be nice for that sense of restriction to be gone, and also some of the disconnect as well that I think, maybe we're feeling after a very long year. But yeah, I am looking forward to that. I think spring is a wonderful time of year anyway, and I do really, really hope that by the summer that there's things on the turn that means that we can get back and start looking forward to the future. So yeah, I think that's what it would be, right? Wouldn't it be great to have friends around, enjoy each other's company, and catch up?
Yeah, well, let's hope that is sooner rather than later. So,
Absolutely.
Roger, thank you so much for playing 20 questions with me today. I've kept a little score here, so I figured that you got 19 out of 20.
Oh, okay, because I turned the one back on you.
Yes, and I've decided I think Hugh Grant might play you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that. I will take that. That's fine. Yeah, let's see what the comments say. Yeah. But I'll take that. Yeah, he's greying slightly now, but that's fine.
Hair dye. That's all you.
Absolutely. Distinguished. Hugh Grant, I'll take.
Hugh Grant, tick. All right. Look, thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you again in real life soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thank you.